My name's Mary, and I'm coming to you from the children's room of the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. And today, I'm going to tell you a story about a frog prince. Now, you may have heard of a story about a frog prince and how he wanted to become a prince again. But I have a story using origami to tell you the story of how that frog got that way. So once upon a time, there was a kingdom, and in that kingdom, there was a king and queen who for years and years wished for a child to be born to them. Well, finally, they had a son, and he was so fine and beautiful that his mother named him Handsome Prince. And he was handsome. He was very handsome, but he was also very lazy. He hated to do much of anything at all on his own. In fact, I'll show you what one day in his life was like. See, in the morning, when the prince woke up, the servants would rush into his room and place a jade breakfast tray right on his bed. So without even getting out of bed, he sat right there and ate his breakfast. Well, as soon as he had eaten, it was time to think about getting up and starting the day. So some of the servants came running in with his shirt. Now, as you look at that, I bet you're thinking to yourself, look at that. That was a green breakfast tray, and then that was a green shirt. I wonder why. Well, if you guessed that the king's favorite color was green, then you would be absolutely correct. Well, now that he had his shirt on, he was getting ready to put his feet outside of the bed. And he was looking around wondering where his servants had gotten to when all of a sudden, they came rushing in with his, with his pants that weren't torn even though they looked it. Well, he put on his pants and then he got out of bed and he went down the stairs and went to the game room, which was right next door to the throne room. Well, he walked into the game room, and the game room was full of tables. And on each table was a green tablecloth, because as you know, the king's favorite color was green. In the middle of every one of those tables was a checkerboard. So all the nobles would come to visit the prince, and then they would have to play checkers. Well, he was the prince, so the prince usually won. So the prince had fun going from table to table and winning game after game, but for everyone else it was kind of boring. So on this particular day, when the prince did something very unusual, no one reacted because they were so shocked. You see, the sun was coming right in the window, and the prince looked up and saw that light and said, "You know, I think it's a beautiful day. I'm going to take a walk." So he walked right out of the game room, right out of the castle, and he started down the road, and he passed the windmills until he got to the river, and at the river he saw the boats all tied up. And he thought, you know, I've been out on those boats many, many times. I bet I could do it alone. I've watched what they do." So he untied one of the boats and he set off down the river. And it was such a beautiful day. And he looked around. Suddenly he thought, well, I'm the prince. And my father rules over this country, and someday I will. And all this beautiful country I will rule over. And he saw the farms and the people working on them, and he waved to everyone and they waved back. People came running to the shore because they realized it was the prince. And they were cheering him, and he was waving, and he was looking at the beautiful mountains and the forests. And here was this beautiful river. And he thought, oh, this is just wonderful. So he just kept floating and floating until suddenly he thought, I'm getting kind of hungry. I think maybe I should turn around and go back because it must be time for a meal. So he tried to turn the boat around, but the current was too strong and the wind was blowing against him, and he wasn't that good at maneuvering the boat. So he decided he'd take it to shore. So he came right into shore and he tied up the boat and he started to walk back to the castle. And then he thought, whoa, I got to be careful here because I could trip over a rock, I could trip over a stump, I could trip over a root, I could break my leg. No one knows where I am. I better find a lantern. So he ran back and he looked all through the boat. He looked underneath everything until finally he found a lantern. So he started down the road and he walked along with his lantern, and down ahead he saw a shepherdess asleep under a tree. And he just stopped and stared because he thought she was the most beautiful person he'd ever seen in his life. Well, he stared so long, he woke up the shepherdess. She opened one eye and she looked at him and she said, "Who are you? And why are you just standing there staring at me?" And he said, well, I am a handsome young prince, and I'm going to kiss you, and then we'll marry and live happily ever after. And she said, "Oh, no, you're not. Look at you. You're as pale as milk and as ugly as a frog." And so he kissed her, and he turned into a frog. And that's why if you hear a story about a frog who says he used to be a prince, that's how he got that way. So that's the story of the Frog Prince, which you can find in a book called Just Enough to Tell a Story by Nancy Schimmel. Well, thank you all for joining us today. My name's Mary, and I'm coming to you from the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. And so, until next time, bye-bye.